Chào mừng quý vị quay trở lại với phần tiếp theo của chương trình Tôi về Việt Nam trên kênh truyền hình FBNC với cuộc trò chuyện cùng ông Jack Harding, là nhà sáng lập và là tổng giám đốc của tập đoàn eSilicon, một tập đoàn hoạt động trong lĩnh vực công nghệ bán dẫn đã có mặt tại Việt Nam từ năm 2010. Và trong phần này, chúng ta sẽ cùng tìm hiểu về quá trình khởi nghiệp của ông Jack Harding, một người đã có hơn 30 năm kinh nghiệm khởi nghiệp và những lời khuyên dành cho các nhà khởi nghiệp trẻ tuổi trong lĩnh vực công nghệ.
So what is your outlook for the semiconductor business here?
Well, here locally, I can tell you we've had a few of my friends from Silicon Valley have opened offices here in Ho Chi Minh City. They've managed to take some of our people out of the company and start their businesses, which is, that's okay. That happens everywhere in the world. It certainly happens every day in Silicon Valley. And I'm quite optimistic that a company like eSilicon will spawn yet more and more small offices and foreign companies and foreign investment, but also I'm waiting to see when a group of our own employees call me up and say, "Hey, we decided to start our own company.
Yeah, can we see that? Yeah.
And can you help us out?" And of course we will. That's the way we give back.
Yeah. The spirit of entrepreneurship in Vietnam right now is getting very high, very dynamic.
Well, yeah, I'm no expert on Vietnam, but I can tell you I have 300 fantastic employees who act and work and talk like entrepreneurs, and they get it. And so if they're any indication of the population, great things are in the future of Vietnam.
What motivates you as an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. I spend most of my time answering that question by saying it's not the money.
Okay.
On a risk-adjusted basis, being an entrepreneur makes no sense. The chances of success are very low. And so you have to, number one, be comfortable with failure and embrace the reality that starting a successful company and maintaining it is tough. So, but for me, it's just that challenge. It's the things we've been talking about, Con, working with great people, innovating, inventing, and serving a global market with rare and special technology. It just delights me. And in my experience is that if you do a good job, and you solve the problems of important companies, the economic return will come back to your company and then ultimately to your employees. And so it's all about closing that loop of innovation and invention.
Now looking back a little bit in the past, when you first started eSilicon 10 years ago, how did you envision your future? I mean, how did you know what kind of path you're going to take?
Well, to a degree you don't. And, you really have to have a very high tolerance for ambiguity and uncertainty when you start a business. And great entrepreneurs will come up with a generalized plan, but you always know that some variable will come and hit you in your life, in your business life, just like in your personal life, that'll cause you to adjust. And it's your ability to adjust and roll with those challenges that allow you to have the best chance of being successful. So while I knew I wanted to build up a dynamic and global and an innovative semiconductor and IP company, how it was going to happen was almost completely unknown to me. And so you hire great people, you prepare everybody for surprise change, and you go with it.
This world is so much fast changing right now. Everybody have to be innovative. So what is your source of innovative ideas?
Well, it's funny, as I talk to people around the world, everybody has a good idea for something, and even within the world of technology, just down the halls here in our offices at eSilicon, I guarantee you there's 100 good ideas that are sitting there waiting to happen. But it's understanding that you need to have a partnership. First of all, you need the vision, which is the idea itself. You need the nerve to go do it, to take the chance, because you might be leaving a good job behind. And you also need good investment from partners who back you up. And you take all that and sit it on top of this ecosystem of government and industry and academia, that substrate. That's a formula for success. But all those pieces without each other it's a big challenge to get to the goal line.
Yeah. What makes you believe that you can turn an idea into a business reality?
Well, there's a lot of precedent. I live and work in an environment where that happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I look around, I look at other capable people, and I learn from their successes, and I discuss what were their challenges, and I come up with a vision to say, if they did it, we can do it too. And as I say, success in this business is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. So you actually just have to work very hard. And that's the key. It's not rocket science, as they say. It's working hard in something in which you believe.
As an entrepreneur, I believe you must know how to deal with other people's money, which is the investors.
Right.
So what was your strategy in approaching the investors?
Well, we formed a business plan, which it was short and to the point. It was very candid in that we said, look, this is what we think we can do, but we don't have all the answers yet. And I found a partner way back then, a fellow named Seth Nyman from Crosspoint Ventures, who had a shared vision of making a different kind of semiconductor company that would utilize technology itself over the internet and a lot of the internal tools we use to run our business. And we just went to his whiteboard on 3 or 4 different sessions and crafted up a bunch of really bad ideas until we got to one good one. And at that point in time, it was his job and his business to write checks to invest in startup companies. So he took a chance and invested in my company, and that was a dozen years ago. And today we're we haven't raised money for 10 years, and we're doing quite well.
For a young entrepreneur who wants to start his own business in the high-tech industry, especially the semiconductor, what should they keep in mind?
Well, I think they need to go into the business, any business, with their eyes open. It's high risk. The likelihood of failure is high. So I think you have to find in your heart, can you cope with being a failure? When I go to other geographies, different countries around the world, failing anything is unacceptable. In the technology sector, and certainly in Silicon Valley, failure is a common outcome, and it happens more often than not. So you have to understand that you're taking a huge personal risk and that failure might be the outcome. Secondly, I think you have to get yourself into the mindset that by definition, if you're going to do something that creates a business someone else did not do, you're a contrarian. And people will say to you, why are you doing it this way? We've always done it that way. Well, if you don't hear that, if people aren't challenging your idea as to whether or not it's a good idea, then you're not different enough to be successful. If you follow everybody else with the same idea, you'll lose. So it's a notion of the thoughts and emotions that are contrary to how we were raised. You live with conflict, you live with contrarianism, you live with ambiguity, you live with risk, you embrace risk. And that mindset is something it's difficult to teach. And so I think a soul searching as to whether or not you can really live with that state of mind is the first thing you have to decide. Because if you can't accept those things, you should not be in a startup.
How do you calculate the risk, though?
Well, that's a great question. I talk to a lot of economists about entrepreneurship and innovation, and I often get onto a subject that they really dislike called luck.
Okay.
Because they can't measure luck.
No way.
They measure everything else.
Yeah.
And I tell them, that for every successful company like eSilicon, I can show you 9 others, or maybe 99 others, that had great teams with a big idea, lots of money, good business plan, but they just didn't get their lucky break. And so that's the part you cannot measure. You can measure your financials, you can measure market size, you can measure competition, you can measure the project time to market, you can measure so many things, but there's a variable which is not measurable, and I just call it generally the notion of luck. And there's smarter people than me use fancier words to describe it, but you just got to get that first break and hope you get it pretty early.
Vừa rồi là những chia sẻ của ông Jack Harding, là nhà sáng lập và là tổng giám đốc của tập đoàn bán dẫn eSilicon. Tập đoàn đã có mặt tại Việt Nam từ năm 2010 và hiện đang góp phần xây dựng nên một đội ngũ nhân lực kỹ sư chất lượng cao với những sản phẩm phục vụ khách hàng trên khắp thế giới. Vừa rồi là những kinh nghiệm khởi nghiệp của ông Jack Harding. Chúng tôi sẽ còn quay trở lại sau ít phút nữa. Quý vị có thể xem lại chương trình trên website fbnc.vn hoặc là facebook.com/tôi và Việt Nam.